Hello, Varenya. How are you?
Good. How's it going?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. So you're joining us from Chicago, is that right?
Yes, I am.
For those who are potentially tuning into this, Varenya Shrikant. I have Varenya Shrikant with me here. Many of you may have read her article on Tusk Quill, Scrolling Sobriety, and we're going to be talking a little bit about that today. That experiment that Varenya tried. Was it close to a year ago now?
Yeah, it was, I think, August of 2023. So it's been almost a
Yeah, so
year.
it's been almost a year. So this is
Yeah.
much delayed. We should have had this conversation earlier, but it is what it is. So Brenda is a healthcare consultant based out of Chicago, recent college grad, and last year took up this Herculean task of staying off the social medias for a week, just to see what kind of an impact that would have on, on her life, just as an experiment, right? And
Yeah.
she recorded it in a series of articles called that we've published in a series of articles called Scrolling Sobriety, where kind of it's like a diary style at different points in the day as different sort of insights or observations popped into your mind. You kind of just jotted them down, and then we sort of laid out what the day to day was like. So, if you want to track what that experience was like, you can go read the article. But maybe we can give people a little bit of a like a primer on what went into doing that, and then talk a little bit of just about like insights or reflections that you've had on that like 1 year since. I know a week is not a huge amount of time, but frankly, I can't remember the last time I spent a week without going into any social media application. I can't actually remember the last time. So,
Right.
time is subjective. Maybe it is an enormous amount of time for this kind of thing. But why don't we go into, you can tell us a little bit about why did you want to do this in the first place?
Yeah, for sure. So I think there's a couple of reasons why I just needed to do a detox like this. Um, One is I feel like I was just on this treadmill of constant notifications all day, every day. I was constantly being overstimulated by all these different apps I had on my phone. There's this debate going on online about dumb phones versus smartphones and how having smartphones has actually made us dumber because we're exposed to all this information constantly and it's like taking up our brain space. Not to mention going on the social media channels that I'm most active on, it just became unhealthy for me. I was spending like 50 hours a week on my screen, which, by the way, for reference, there's 170, I think, hours in a week. So I was spending literally 1/3 of the time that I exist in a week on my phone on these social media channels where I'm being bombarded by different kinds of information every scroll that I do, especially on TikTok. I mean, you could be watching like a cat video 1 second and then you scroll and suddenly you're seeing footage of Gaza. So it's really, really overstimulating, just this emotional up and down. And I think I needed a break from it. I needed to rediscover my own brain, my own voice, because I feel like I was just passively consuming all of these other people's voices and not leaving enough space for my thoughts. So that's why I was compelled to do a little detox like this. And I guess we can get into the logistics of the detox. So it was 5 apps that I decided I would cut out for a week, 7 days. The two that I was on the most was TikTok and Instagram. So definitely those ones had to go. And then Twitter is something I check occasionally here and there. So Twitter was another. And then YouTube, because I just love watching content on YouTube for like hours and hours. And Facebook was the last one. Facebook because I love Facebook Marketplace. I'm also a compulsive shopping addict, actually. So cutting out Facebook was helpful to my wallet too. But yeah, those were the
You're
five apps
spilling
that
all the tea.
I'm really
Uh,
exposing
good.
myself here.
No, I mean, I think this will be valuable for a lot of people. It's like, okay, I don't want to interrupt you, but okay, those are the apps that you cut out, and any other details on the logistics before we, yeah.
No, yeah, I think that was it. I just had to stay off of them. I deleted the apps to make sure that I couldn't, go back and open them and mess up. So
Got it.
yeah.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, um, I totally hear you on this, like the the emotional roller coaster that these apps put us on. You know, my particular drug of choice is Twitter, and it's crazy over there. You know, like I mean, I still do it. You know, I wake up in the morning and with my morning coffee, it's like I'm scrolling Twitter. It's just a very natural thing, and you just kind of seeing, you know, where the collective consciousness is. But you come across these like really sometimes incendiary things. People say very provocative things. There's a lot of incentive to say very provocative things, and you can almost just see it, like the mind just goes into like an automatic kind of how would I respond? You know, you're just playing out like your response in your mind, and it's like I didn't wait. Like 5 minutes ago, this was not even this world event or this big geopolitical debate was not even something I was thinking of, and now so much energy is getting wrapped into it. And then the other point you mentioned about how just like context of the content that you're seeing. It's like the cat video and then like a war zone. And then it's like, you know, somebody doing like a silly skit. It's like, what is that? How does that desensitize our sort of emotional response
Mhm.
mechanisms? I think it's something really interesting, something I think about. So um cool. So like so you did this for a week. You cut out the apps, deleted the apps, and you're saying, okay, like cold turkey. So what were some of the insights? Like what did you learn? Did it have any profound impact, or was it kind of mundane, or what was it? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say the first 3 days were the hardest for me. The need for me to reach for my phone and open up TikTok or Instagram, whatever, it was almost like a phantom limb sensation, I want to say. Like I would wake up and immediately my hand would go towards my phone to turn off my alarm. And then it would just automatically like want to scroll to the page where I have TikTok. So it was really odd to see just how deeply this practice of using social media was just ingrained in my brain. And I think the first couple of days, especially, was really, really hard for me to, I guess, rewire those, neural connections. um, I think the phrase dopamine detox can be a little bit of a misnomer because you can't really stop your body from producing dopamine, right? But you can try to get it from a healthier place. And I think that's what I was trying to do is I was trying to replace my habit of scrolling with healthier habits that I could get dopamine from, whether that was just waking up and looking out the window and getting some sunlight in my eyes, or like if I was doing laundry, I would take time to, I guess, smell the laundry detergent and just like listen to the sounds around me and notice the little mundane things. I think getting dopamine from that was harder, but I think it definitely helped me reset those habits that I had. That was probably the biggest insight I had from this detox is how we forget to appreciate the mundane. Like I think I mentioned somewhere in the journal that I actually counted how long my espresso machine takes to pull a shot of espresso. And it was something like 17 seconds. And just noticing little things like that, being mindful, being aware, being in the present moment, we have lost that over time because any free time that you have, you want to reach for your phone and be scrolling on Twitter or be scrolling through TikTok. I have a friend who, while she's brushing her teeth, she'll be scrolling through TikTok. And while she's washing her hands or doing the dishes, she has TikTok set up like in front of her by the faucet. And I'm like, not only is that dangerous for your phone, but it's just a bad habit. Like, why can't you sit in silence or sit in stillness? Right. So I think appreciating the mundane, and being in the present moment was probably the number one thing that I noticed. Through this process of detoxing, I think I also rediscovered myself and my voice, my inner voice, my creativity. Um, I feel like before this detox, I was just constantly consuming other people's thoughts, other people's ideas, other people's content all the time. And it left very little space for reflection. And it left very little space for me to sit at the end of the day and think, okay, what have I learned today? How have I changed? What do I think about this particular issue? Instead of what do 50 people on Twitter think about this particular issue? I'm also just a lover of all things creative. I love fashion, I love writing, I love reading, I love cooking. And I think over time I had lost those hobbies because it was replaced by passive consumption of media. So I opened up so much free time for myself by cutting out all of these apps. Yeah, I guess I just spent more time doing things that I had forgotten how much I loved. I mentioned in my journal that I have like a little book Instagram. And so I knocked out 2 book reviews, which for me, I'm really inconsistent on writing these. So that was a big deal. I picked up a book that I'd been meaning to finish for months and just had not got around to it. It's called Deep Work, which ironically is all about attention and focus. So, that was another thing I did. I think I tried out like a new recipe for cookies or something like that. So I was just rediscovering my love for all of these different hobbies. And I also just felt a lot more creative, I think. I had space in my head to think, and again, to allow that like inner voice to come through. So I felt like myself again after a really long time. Um, so I would say that was another thing.
So it sounds like, um, yeah, so like a higher degree of presence, an appreciation of like the mundane day-to-day things in life, and you're sort of, I guess, from that sense of presence, the creativity opens up. I think it's really interesting what you said about started to have space and time to figure out what I think about something rather than when 50 people want. And it's just such a uh, it's just such a real. It's like there's a meme that I saw recently where it's like how it's like bifurcated kind of thing where it's like one the top image is like the YouTube video and it's just like a guy, kind of normal looking guy, and then the bottom half of it was like this like how should I say like super like almost deranged like enthusiastic kind of a person. It's like the YouTube comments, it's like it's like almost like
Yeah,
we watch the video and then we immediately go into the comments just to see what are other people saying. Almost like we need
exactly.
a certain kind of validation or we need to see what other people think in order to form our own thoughts. And what does that say about our the independence of mind? And yeah, to like actually know what do I think about something, and form my own thoughts. It's like a skill that's being atrophied, to have confidence in my own view. And then obviously you
Mhm.
talked about it. So it's almost like you were like maybe this is exaggerating, but it's like you were relearning how to be a human, is what it sounds like. And what it feels like when you read the piece, it's like, oh, this is what like life should be like in a way. We're just so hyper stimulated. And the dopamine is just coming from all these places that kind of take us a little bit away from that, or maybe a lot. It from a subjective, I mean, objectively, you did a very small thing. You just deleted a few apps and whatever. You're going about your day, but for your subjective experience of life transformed pretty significantly within a week. You just had to get over. Um, you just had to get over like a couple of days of difficulty, you said, and then things started opening up. What has been the okay now is a challenging question. Like how much of that is stuck? Like how is it trans after a week you got back on these various apps, like how how has your relationship with them changed? Um yeah, what difference do you notice in that kind of in your relationship with this technology?
Yeah, I think the key with anything really is to strike a balance, right? So I do think that detox had certain effects that I still see in myself a year later. I would say the number one thing that I do now is I actively make an effort to curate the content on my For You page. Um, for instance, on TikTok, you've got essentially 2 sections. There's a For You page where the app just kind of feeds you content based on its predetermined algorithm. And then there's the following page where you can only see content from creators that you follow. And so I went through, this was just a few weeks ago, actually. I went through and unfollowed a ton of the creators that I don't resonate with anymore. And I make an active effort now to scroll only on the following side because I follow creators that I feel like genuinely help me be a better person. And I've definitely had scrolling sessions in the past where, it was a limited amount of time. It was like 20, 30 minutes on TikTok. But after I finished scrolling, I didn't feel that like sense of brain rot. I felt like I'd learned something from what I'd watched. So I'm definitely not advocating for anyone to like completely limit, their, especially if you have like favorite content creators, you don't want to miss what they're putting out. So limit your time, I would say, and curate your content. Those are the two biggest lessons I've learned. And that's how I now practice a more mindful policy of social media use. So
And I mean, for limiting the time, I mean, what do you do? You just like keep it away, like simple things, like you keep it away from your workstation, or like have you just mastered you're just so mindful now that just can just do it? What's the any thoughts on that front?
yeah, I mean, I think the easiest way is to just put a screen time limit on these
Mm,
apps, which you can do on an
yeah.
iPhone. I don't know about Androids. And then the other thing is what you mentioned, right? Not taking your phone everywhere with you. So if I'm at work, for instance, and I'm about to go into a meeting room where all I really need is my laptop, I'll leave my phone at my desk or in my bag and just take my laptop with me. And it's the tiniest little things that make you realize really how addicted you are to this like brick of technology in your pocket, right? There have been times where I like don't feel safe, or I feel like I'm missing a part of myself if I don't carry my phone with me into the next room. And it's so silly in retrospect. So yeah, put some time limits on your apps, make an active effort not to carry your phone with you everywhere. I would say that's a really great way to do it.
Yeah, that's kind of something, and I'm almost feeling this as we're talking about it. And I think there's a part in your journal where a friend comes over, and I don't know if it's the friend or if it's somebody else, but you make this comment about how you're doing this detox, and they're just like, "What's the big deal?" It's like, "All right, you're not on social media for a couple days." It's like, why are you like writing it? You're recording it, and there's this like weird asymmetry about this, where I mean, it's just a humble little device. These phones, little things. Um, in theory, we should be the master of them rather than subservient to them or in any way. But and so there's almost this like kind of like an embarrassment that this is like such a topic of discussion, and that this is such a challenge. But in reality, like you're saying, like you notice all these like profound attachments that you have to it. And it's like I literally am missing a piece of myself, or I'm like afraid to go outside and walk without my, not afraid, but it's just like there's like a sense of concern in the back of your mind, like what if something happens with, and or just imagining that for like, could you imagine for the rest of my life I'll never go on a social media app? Like just the thought of it will just make you like, cringe. And so it's like dug these tentacles into us in very subtle ways. And so it is actually a very powerful thing. And yet it's packaged in this humble way that to talk about it in these terms is almost a little bit embarrassing. It's like, dude, you're an adult, like get a grip. But it's like this thing has its claws in me. What do you think about that? Like when your friend made that comment, I know you reflected on it a little bit. Like, hey, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that? Like, there's this weird asymmetry about, we think we're fully in control of ourselves, but actually we're not. And this little humble little device kind of infiltrates that gap. What do you think? What do you think about that? Just curious.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this in the journal too, but I think sometimes the way people talk about their phone addiction or their social media addiction, the language they use is very similar to language used by like drug addicts or, people who are addicted to substances. And I certainly don't mean to say that one has more gravity than the other. And I know those things are so serious, but it's like when I first started the detox, there was kind of this voice in the back of my head that was like, well, 10 minutes on TikTok, it's not going to hurt anyone, right? It's not going to, like, who am I really hurting? Is it that bad for my attention span if I just, what if I take a picture and post it to Instagram? Like, who am I? No one's even going to watch it. Like, it's fine. It's not a big deal. Um, but it is a big deal. And you don't realize until you cold turkey quit something the effect that it really has on you and how deeply ingrained it is into your day to day. So I think getting our power back from these things that seem so innocent, but are literally engineered to be addictive. Um, that is like the number one way I think to become refocused in today's world is just cold turkey quitting. I think a detox like this really exposes your triggers too. You realize throughout the day what sorts of what has to happen for you to reach for your phone. Like when I used to get stressed out or anxious about an upcoming meeting or something like that, I would immediately reach for my phone and get like a quick, cheap, easy hit of dopamine from TikTok. Or if I was irritated at someone, or I was angry about something, or I was sad, I would want to reach for my phone and go on social media and just distract myself and escape. So I think a detox like this also allows you to kind of uncover your triggers and realize how emotionally dysregulated a lot of us really are. We go through all of these like ups and downs throughout the day of um, little things just kind of taking away our peace of mind. And then we try to get that peace of mind back by just ignoring the feeling altogether and replacing it with a phone or food or sugar or drugs or whatever your substance of choice is. Um, I think until you cold turkey quit it, you're not going to be able to see where those points are for you, where those weak spots are for you.
I think you're right, and I think this is actually an interesting definition of addiction itself, which is that I don't know, I'm not an expert in these things, but it's almost like hesitate to use it. Okay, let's say like a healthy mind is one where it's like you can consciously regulate yourself to some degree.
Right.
And what an addiction does is it is like you develop a psyche where you need that thing for you to regulate you. You know, like you're without it, you become dysregulated, like you said. I think that's a great emotionally dysregulated. And so then it becomes a crutch, as they say. Um, and it just sort of pops up everywhere. Like you're a little bit bored, a little bit angry. Just anytime you need to like escape the current situation, you sort of that's your mind just automatically jumps to that. And the thing you said about how like these like subtle little rationalizations, like who's gonna 10 minutes of like who's gonna how's that gonna hurt? It's like you have these old stories of like the devil whispering in your ear and all this kind of stuff. It's like it's like these are very, very human, very ancient kind of reality of like these things sneak up on you through these like very subtle rationalizations that just sort of like nudges you off course a little bit. Um, but you keep compounding that and you end up in a situation where, yeah, it's like I need this thing to like regulate my own psyche because I've lost the ability to do that myself. And that's like a profound loss, once you realize it. So anyway, that's just me. We're just sort of waxing philosophical here, but to sort of round out um, the conversation, like if you were to do this again, or let's say somebody watches this, they're like, you know what, I want to try this. I want to learn where my triggers are. I want to start gaining a little bit of mastery over my time and mind back through this mechanism. How would you do it differently, or what advice would you have to somebody like that?
I think doing a kind of audit almost of, where do you find your entertainment throughout the day? What kinds of media are you constantly consuming? I think start there and then literally just cold turkey quit for 3 to 7 days, however long it takes. And that'll give you more of a glimpse into the destructive habits that you've sort of created around these addictions, whether it's phone, food, whatever. I guess we're talking about phones here, so I will I will stick to that. But I think if you're too scared to cold turkey quit, then do the screen time thing. Like limit your time on each app, maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Curate your content and only stick to watching content from creators that you genuinely love and that you know are good for you. That's another way you can do it. Honestly, if I had to do this detox again, I might cut out podcasts because I didn't limit myself on podcasts last time. And my podcast, like my hours listened to podcasts definitely went up during the detox. And I was still consuming some form of media. It was just, you know, podcasts that are arguably, I guess, like healthier, better for you. I love Andrew Huberman. I love like Tori Dunlap. She's a financial coach for women. So, I mean, yeah, I was spending a lot more time learning through, listening to these kind of podcasts, but it's still something that is just filling the silence in my brain. So, is it really that healthy to be dependent on, hearing someone else talk for like hours during the day? I mean, I don't know. A lot of times I'll go on a walk and instead of listening to music, I'll like put on a podcast, but it's still something that's keeping me from being present, right? So, really, I guess, really examine what sorts of voices are filling, or I guess examine what's taking up brain space, and is it really as healthy for you as you think it is? So,
Great. Yeah, it's always tough to like audit yourself. It's like one of the most awkward kind of exercise. Like I'm supposed to like take a notebook and every hour just I've done this in the past also, but I think it's a super it's like you just take a sheet of paper and you just sort of mark down the hours and it's like okay on the dot every hour it's like what did I do in the past hour? And it's like oh yeah 30 minutes on Twitter and 30 minutes of what I actually wanted to do, you know. And it can be kind of scary. I think it's partially awkward, but also partially like at a subconscious level, it's like we don't actually want to look at ourselves that closely. You know, it's a little bit unnerving. Um,
mhm.
but very healthy exercise if you go through it, I think. Um, cool. A couple of disclaimers in order. Obviously, none of us are trained psychologists or within uh, fields related to how to like heal from addiction, but I think you did an experiment, you tried something with yourself that had very healthy, from my perspective, and I think yours as well, sort of healthy personal results. And so we just wanted to share that because I know this is a topic that for many years now people have been thinking about, and I think it's always useful to like see somebody's firsthand experience, like what is it actually like, so it's not just like purely theoretical. And then the other thing obviously is like we're talking about digital addiction. In theory, people are consuming this content probably on a social media app or YouTube. So consider this, as they say, it's like when you have a thorn in your foot and you use another thorn to take out that thorn. Like, like so consider this the YouTube video to liberate you from YouTube videos, or at least um, compulsive consumption of this kind of content. Try to, regain mastery. And it's like you kind of have to like exert a little bit of willpower for a little while and then you start seeing benefits from it and hopefully then it picks up its own momentum. Um, any last thoughts, Varenya, on your end?
I guess I would just say that I think so many of us today are, consumed in the world around us, but not really. Like, I think we forget that we're all individuals who are part of this larger scheme of things. And the way to fix that problem is to connect with each other more and not in the way that you think, right? Like, I don't necessarily think that digital connection can replace physical connection. Um, I I found that during the detox, when I would like lock eyes with a stranger as I was walking and like smile at them and get a smile back, that would give me a sense of dopamine. And I just forgot how good it felt to make a connection like that in person versus making a connection, by following someone on Instagram. So I guess this really made me cherish people, and I think that's something that we can all use more of. And then, of course, just being more present, being in the moment, being mindful, all of those things are good too. So, put away your phone for a little bit and be human and engage with other people. I think that is just the way to heal the world, honestly. So,
Okay. Yeah. From the particular, yeah, to the general. Put away your phone and be human. Maybe we'll change the title from scrolling sobriety to that. That's a good one. Um, Varenya, thank you. And thanks for taking up this challenge a year ago and recording it and I think it's a really fun and interesting read. So I mean we'll keep the link to it in the description and yeah, cool. Thanks for uh Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you guys for giving me the platform and allowing me to do this experiment. I think it taught me a lot about myself. So I'm very grateful. And you guys are doing great work.